Today we're gonna do chapter 2 of Flat Stanley, and now we're gonna start. The photo album was a little bit dusty, but the pictures were bright and clear. Right there on the first page was a photo of Stanley and Arthur on horseback riding. They were with their old friend. Look, said Arthur excitedly. Remember Emily Jasper? Emily Jasper was a cowgirl who had taken the boys to a gold mine in South Dakota. And their gold rush, said Stanley, pointing to the horse. Captain Casper was holding the reins. Okay. While Arthur and Stanley held on tight behind her. It was not easy for a flat kid to ride a horse. Stanley learned how to on that trip. He rolled up like a blanket. I love South Dakota, Arthur added. Remember how we got lost and sent smoke signals to the rest of the group so they could find us? Stanley definitely remembered that. Captain Jasper had built a fire and swung him around the air fans and the flames. But it was not his favorite memory from South Dakota. His favorite memory was the standing on the trail right above Mount Rushmore and slipping into a president's nose. What? Oh, okay. That makes sense. Arthur turned the page, frowning. Oh, I didn't get to go on this trip, he muttered. Sorry, Arthur, Stanley muttered, looking at the photos of his trips to Egypt. Sometimes Stanley was invited to travel without his family. Sometimes there were special missions that only Stanley could do. His fist easily into the envelope so he could travel by himself through the mail. After he went to Egypt, Stanley remembered Miss Landreth gathered photos from other people to put in this album. There was a picture of Stanley in his busy bazaar in Egypt. Here was a picture of Stanley in bazaar in Egypt. He was the map of the ancient Rosie. Go. Rosie. Rosie, sit. See, I told you our family went to Canada. Stanley told his mother, turning the page again. He showed Arthur a picture of him skiing down a mountain, or at least Arthur was skiing. The windy slopes were not a great place for Stanley. That was right before I got hurt, Arthur said. Suddenly it came all back to Stanley. Arthur had sprained his ankle, so he didn't see much of Canada at all. But Stanley made friends with Nick, the son of Arthur's doctor. Stanley and Nick had met Inuit man, seen the northern lights race through the snow with dog sleds, and tumbled over Niagara Falls. Rosie. Okay, you can sit there. Mr. and Mrs. Landreth have arrived with Arthur just in time to see Stanley in the middle of the arena with the famous bullfighter Harmon de Joncho and an angry bull. Stanley looked at his brother. Do you remember what I remember from that trip? Arthur grinned. I remember what Mom did, he said. She was worried about the bullfights, was a dangerous place for you, Stanley, so she had to yell out. She yelled at the bull, "Stay away from my son." The boys yelled out together, relieving the moment. They laughed. Stanley still wondered the bull had paid attention to Mrs. Lanchop. He didn't get hurt in the bullfight at all. "Here's our trip to Africa," author exclaimed and turned the page again. That time it was my favorite trip of all time. Stanley smiled, remembering it well. He saw the giraffe from above and the lion. Up close, much up too close, he jumped out of the plane with a parachute and coasted to the ground like a paper airplane. He also met Dr. Livingstone, follows a scientist who discovers flat skull. Back then, Stanley had hoped to learn about other flat people. He was curious about the scientist's discovery. When the humans go at all, it was a skull of a fish, and Mr. Fallows was not a real entomologist or expert in prehistoric people. He said he was an ologist, an expert in everything. Back then, Stanley was not a little sad to get answers from flatness. Back then, he made himself in a bad way. Now, though, he knew that being flat made him special in the best way. Stanley turned the next page in the photo album and flipped it quick. It was only Miss Lambchop to go to China, because she was the only Lambchop who could substitute an opera bat with the flying Chinese wonders. Arthur had not seen a famous Tirada army buried with an ancient Chinese emperor without. Arthur had not done. Rosie. He black-flipped on the gray wall of China he had been seen at the home while Stanley took a tour by a panda bear. But Arthur just had to save the day. I'd save the day for Stanley just the same. He knew how Stanley could fix the tear and go on with the show. That's why Stanley could forgive Arthur for throwing a boomerang in Australia and losing him on a strong wind. "Remember this?" he said. He asked his brother, pointing at another picture. "We were a snorkel at a Great Barrier Reef, and you used me as a surfboard. Surfing is the best," said Arthur. "I can't wait to do that again." "Oh, I have that book." "I want to try it too," said Stanley. "But the next time I want to be a surfer, not on the board." They were at the end of the first photo album, and cool, really cool, just cool. How are we going to make a list? The best parts of these trips, it was not only going to be a very long list, Arthur replied, and we are going to stop there. Bye!